curious what we're doing. But hello, old chap. I have seen him before. He's got quite a serious scar across the top of his snout, just in front of his eyes. Scar in the back of the neck. This is an old man. This is a chap that's seen a lot of life in the last, I'd say maybe quarter century, 25 odd years or so. Giraffe don't really live much past 30, I don't think. Still feeding on young tambuti leaves. Very interesting. Hello to Brianna in Texas. Brianna wanting to know if they live in herds or mostly solitary lives. And, well, it depends. Females, giraffe cows, the ladies giraffe, they tend to live in groups. They are social animals, and they tend to live in groups with their youngsters, although it's not that unusual or that impossible to find a giraffe cow on her own. Bulls, on the other hand, you do find these old bulls on their own. You might find younger bulls in bachelor herds. So it's a little bit of everything, Brianna, because the older bulls are solitary, and then they will hook up with, or they'll meet up with some of the family groups when females are in estrus. We don't have the dynamic of a dominant bull with a herd of females and he protects them. It's more a case of the females and the calves move around on their own, and they don't have territories, they just move through areas. Bulls don't necessarily have territories, they have home ranges, or they have areas that they mostly utilize at different times of the year so that they know where the trees are, just areas that they've grown up in. Which is why one tends to maybe see the same giraffe from time to time, and they might pick up on the estrus scent of females, and then they'll join a group of females and vie for dominance with other bulls to be able to mate with those females. But there isn't really a strict rule of whether they need to be solitary or they need to be in a group. The other thing is, of course, is that giraffe, being the kind of animal that they are, being so tall, even if they were in a herd, you might find a herd or a group of giraffe, what we call a journey of giraffe or a tower of giraffe. They might be spread out over some distance, and you might just find one. You might come across one giraffe and you might think it's alone. And this is the thing about nature and about Africa, especially in this type of terrain and this type of habitat, is that very, very often we come across an individual and we don't really know that it's on its own, but we can only see it on its own because of the density of the vegetation around us. We have no idea what they might be 10 or 20 or even 100 yards away. And for giraffe, somewhat like elephant, but not to the same extent, but somewhat like elephant, they can be traveling a few hundred yards apart, but they'll still be together. And there is a new theory now that maybe giraffe do have some sort of low frequency communication or something that allows them to communicate. And I've seen some really strange things, how giraffes come together out of the blue, and well, it's not so out of the blue as one might imagine. Let's see if we can move forward a little bit and see him again. He's down behind the trees. But the concept of being alone in the animal kingdom is very, very different to what we as humans think of as being alone, because they don't have to be right next to each other to be together. They could be considerable distances apart but still be together, because they're still moving together, they're still somehow communicating with each other. Is his head hit? Yeah. Unfortunately, standing in the shade is not great for filming, and a few low hanging branches that we can't really see his head. A very healthy old man. He's been through the wars a little bit. His ears are tattered and perhaps half the size that they should be. And I'm actually wondering whether the conditions that we're experiencing now, with the hole in the ozone layer and higher risks for skin cancer, is actually starting to affect animals, because I've seen cheetah, who are predominantly diurnal hunters, starting to get sort of cauliflower ear type syndrome, and skin starting to be affected by sunlight. And an old man like this, those ears are seriously worn. It's something we don't really consider when we think of the UV factors. And nowadays on the weather, when the summer comes along and the weather actually advertises the UV risk. You ever see that? Yeah, not so much in the UK, no. But certainly down here, especially in the Cape and down along the coast, the beach goers, every day on the weather they give a factor of, or a number, and that's supposed to relate to the UV risk. But of course we don't think about the children that live in nature's children, the animals that move around and are susceptible to excessive amounts of UVB radiation. It's all very well we put on sunblock. Some of these animals can't. Would be an interesting study. Okay, well, we're going to leave this old man and we're going to carry on. Eric, I'm not implying you're an old man. Bye-bye, old man. Old boy. Giraffe, I mean. Three bulls. That's a big one. One at the back is huge, but he's in some thick bush. And animals are not really playing ball today. They're all on the western side of the road, so they're all into the sun. But maybe these boys might move out. There's two younger bulls. There's a really big old man here. He's huge. Just coming through the bushes now. And hopefully, come this way, old man. Come inside. He's the Nyala equivalent of that big old giraffe that we saw. He's incredible. He's probably like a record Nyala, I would say. I don't think I've seen a Nyala that big. He's horns almost kudu size. Oh, she's huge. The equipment we have on the jigger, I don't know, if I had to tell you, I'd have to classified information. So basically we've got broadcast equipment on the jigger, kind of stuff that you might find in an outside broadcast vehicle from a TV studio that goes to sporting events, or that does a live news feed for their 6 o'clock news kind of thing. But I can't really reveal too much because it's a secret. And if I tell you a secret, then I might just have to... No, I'm joking. Are we going to get to see this big old boy? I'd like to, because he's a magnificent Nyala bull. Just feeding just in some very thick bush at the moment. And I'm hoping that he's going to move out into a more open patch. 2 younger bulls with him, obviously learning from him, and no doubt they spend a little bit of time sparring for them to learn a little bit of sparring or strutting techniques. Nyala have a unique way of establishing and maintaining dominance. They don't really spar so much as the other antelope do. They have a dance that they perform, and this has resulted in all of these unique features about Nyala that you don't find in other antelope. We've got this ridge of hair along the back that they're able to erect, and it stands up as a very white ridge along the back. He is already displaying to these younger bulls as he's moving through the bush. But they have these incredible tails that they can fan out, and all to make them look bigger and more imposing. And I suppose in some ways it's a way of preventing them from having to go as far as headbutting and physical fighting. But here he is, he's coming out into the open shortly. Sadly, right into the sun. Is it any good? It's not the best. Maybe we can go forward and turn around a little bit. You can never really train animals to be on the right side of the sun. Gosh, he's big. Look at him. Sure, he's a big boy. I don't think I've ever seen a Nyala that big. He's nearly like a bongo, he's so big. And no doubt very proud. I'm going to move up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, bye boys. For those of you who've been with me, I've shown you some processionary caterpillars on trees and stuff, but these are processionary caterpillars on the mast. Is that too close? Can you see that? Especially there in front. I'm going to go down there and put my fingers next to it, my toes. You're going to be able to see a little bit more. Maybe switch mics so that maybe you could hear me. Okay, what I want to tell you is this. Can you see this? There appears to have been... Can you hear me?
Yeah, just hold on 2 seconds. Okay. Yep.
Do you want a diamond necklace, Becky?
Not really, no.
Okay, it's not quite diamonds, it's quartz. Okay, this was from a procession that has been through here already, and obviously there's a lot more to these caterpillars than we're seeing right now. But this was a column of caterpillars that has been passed already, and each caterpillar lays down a little strand of silk, so when you get a couple of hundred caterpillars, the strands become so intermingled that it becomes quite a strong, well, not that strong, not as strong as spider silk, but it's a fairly strong line of silk that picks up a lot of sand. So each caterpillar that we see in the line is actually laying down a little thread of silk for the one behind it to follow. That's one individual caterpillar. Very, very hairy.
Hold it still.
It doesn't know where to go because it hasn't got a strand of silk to follow. But I'll put it back on the line in a minute. I thought I'd show you. Okay, I can put it back now.
Yeah.
Are you on me with my fingers?
No.
No. Can you see my fingers? Okay, now I'm messing up the line now. Can you? I suppose you can't really see much, can you?
A long line of caterpillars.
Okay, it's really, really hard to get close to them with the camera and to show you the true wonder of it all. And I don't know, we might even have to turn around because it can take an hour for these caterpillars to cross the road. But they're what we call processionary caterpillars. They turn into the processionary moth. Although as a moth they don't do any processions. But each caterpillar lays down a very thin strand of silk as it moves along. And because they're communal caterpillars, they actually need to feed together. That's something that they need to do for protection purposes. Not that really that many things that eat them, because they are hairy. But it's just one of those wonders of nature that is quite incredible, that they have these long lines and they follow, this time of the year, they follow each other from one food source to another. But now I've disturbed them, and I should never have done that. But at least because they have this line of silk, all I have to do is guide them back onto this road of silk that they're each following, and they should follow the rest of the crowd. But I don't know, I can't imagine driving over them. The car coming.
Put a little sign up.
Pardon?
Put a little sign up.
Little sign. Caterpillar crossing. Okay. Can you draw that quickly? But that's the best I can do, just move them all off, and they're all in a pile, and that's how they sleep at night anyway, so they'll all figure it out. But that's the only way I can do it, really. There's certain things that I have to wait for, and some things that I can't. To wait for those caterpillars would be dark before they'd be crossing the road. They take such a long time. But all the silk is together, and they're all together, and they'll regroup. It's better than driving over them. I couldn't imagine driving over them. This is not a duiker, because the duiker's horns stand much further apart. It's not a steenbok. I'm wondering if it's not maybe a young, it's not a young, it's actually it's a big male, judging by the size and age of these horns, whether it's not a grysbok. I'm actually puzzled, I have to be honest. Normally I know these things, but this is rather strange. a lot of stuff still on the skull. I'm going to take the bottom jaw out of it, because I'd like to be able to clean up the skull. Very, very worn teeth. This is a really old male. Some of his molars are so badly worn. It looks like he had an abscess on one of his teeth here. You can see where infection, can you see this? You can see where infection has actually eaten away at the jawbone. So he had a pretty bad tooth infection at some point. That's not normal. Tooth wear on this old man is quite unusual. There are no visible signs of course, the skin that is left on his skull is not telling me anything, because insects have eaten at it, and I'd need to be able to remove a lot of the skin to be able to get the skull removed from it. It is still articulated with some of its cervical vertebrae. The first, there's the axial and the C2. So the first two vertebrae of his skull are still there. Very, very old teeth. His teeth are very, very worn. And there's a remote possibility that he could have even died of old age. What do you want me to do? Like that. There's a possibility that he might have even died of old age. I'm not seeing any marks on the skull that are indicative of something grabbing him around the head. Of course, it could well be that something grabbed him around the throat. But the one thing that is very clear to me is that this part of the skull is still intact. And if this was a leopard kill, it would be far too small for a lion. If a lion had killed this animal, the skull wouldn't be as complete as it is. A lion, being such a small antelope, would have eaten most of it, would have crushed the entire skull, maybe left the horns or something. The hair can give me a little bit of an indication. It's very, very pale. And that's why I'm starting to think either reedbuck, maybe, or gracebuck, but definitely not a duiker, and I don't think a steenbuck. Steenbuck's got straight horns, doesn't have these curved horns, so it could be a reedbuck, or it could be I'm going to look in my book quickly. It's kind of difficult to tell. As much as I've lived in the bush all my life, I'm really puzzled at who this was. And the fact that there's still so much skin on the neck. That's an interesting thing, and I'm going to take him with us, because it's something that I'd like to study further. So the only way to learn things is actually to do this kind of stuff, and it's old. The skin is very, very dry. Sometime during the summer. Where is CVS Pharmacy? Kills 99.99%. Okay, well, let's just hope it's not that 0.001% that is here. But I keep this stuff especially for these purposes, that I can sanitize my hands, because who knows what I might do with them. Right, now while we have... Look, there's not really much happening this afternoon. The radio hasn't been very active. It's been windy all day. It's an autumn day with the leaves falling, making a lot of noise. Not many animals about. There's some yellow flowers of the Crassula vaginata. Let me find my mammal book while we're here. So it's more like a day of just questions and interaction. And as the sun goes down, we're now going to head towards where that lion was, and hopefully we can find him. Or he might still be there somewhere. Don't know if he is. But who could this have been? A little antelope, not a duiker, because a duiker's horns are much further apart. So he's not a duiker. There we go. You see why I think it's a gracebuck? Pardon? Because of the slight curve, but that's Here's the shafts, and also the shafts still a little bit far apart. Can't be a Sunni. I mean, it looks just like, almost just like a Sunni, but Sunni don't occur. I don't think Sunni even occur here. Steenbok, his horns are too far apart, but it could, Arabi, maybe, right colour for Arabi, but would we even get an Arabi here? It's an interesting skull, that's for sure. It's a very interesting skull. It's not one of our common antelopes. There's a rebuck. It's not a rebuck. One of the big bucks we definitely don't get. Then let's go to the reedbucks. Now, reedbuck have got too much of a curve. The southern reedbuck. So by process of elimination, one of the only things that I can think of, of the dwarf antelopes, maybe an Arabi. The Kruisbuck that I thought it might have been, the Kruisbuck is, horns are too far apart and too small. Steenbok, horns are too far apart. But the Arabi is one antelope that and I'm just looking here, this very deep concave portion of the skull that could hold the preorbital gland that the Arabi has. But what's really confusing me is the gap between these horns, because the Steenbok and the Dake are the two common dwarf antelope that we have here, and the not so common Kruisbuck, the Kruisbuck smaller and stubbier horns. The growth on these horns is incredible. I mean, there's got to be 10 or more years, 12 years or more in the growth rings on these horns. I'm going to need to consult some of my colleagues on that one, but it's not a common skull. It's something that I haven't ever seen before. Well, not ever seen. It's something we don't find. And yes, having touched it again, let me refresh. Okay. Very, very interesting. But that one. Too much in the way of them. Better. Oh, I'm starting to disturb it. I want you to observe what we're seeing here. We've seen like these. We've seen those caterpillars that are communal, that are living in a big tight group, and now these hatchling grasshoppers that are what we call the foam grasshoppers, or the phobomorphic grasshoppers, emerge from their eggs, and they too, coming out this time of the year, they too spend their time in groups, very, very tight groups, both to conserve energy and heat, but also to protect themselves. Interesting phenomenon in nature. And I hope RC or any of our other birders are here. Dave Hill or Sharon even, Austria, or course it's in the shade, we're not going to get its colouring, but it has the most beautiful colours, and it's about to fly. The purple-crested Taraka. How's it looking on cam? Fairly small. Pete in Cape Town, Pete Bright. Looks like a youngster. It's a small individual. It's raising its purple crest. Most gorgeous colours in this bird. Not to mention the crimson primary feathers in its wings. Go on. Well done anyway. Nice. The way it's coming down the road, over the mitre drains. A little bit ungainly because of the slope sometimes. What does it look like, Becky? Is it okay, if we sit really, really quietly and still, then he might think that we're the part of the road and it's going to walk all over us. As it comes closer, it's going to climb on the bonnet and then step over us and climb over the camera. He's walking in a straight line. But we've been seen. We're now a target. Brace yourself, Becky. The giraffe has spotted us. If he flicks his tail, it means he's going into attack mode. I guess we're lucky he didn't flick his tail. Okay, sometimes my sense of humor can run away with me. Only kidding. No known cases of giraffe attacking humans, to my knowledge. So I don't know where he was when we drove past here, because we came to where he had been lying this morning. I didn't see him. But in driving past him and going to look for him at this little dam just to the west of us, I thought he might have been there. And as we stopped there and I had to fix the antenna, I heard him calling. So he's only just woken up. You can see he's having a bit of a bad hair day there. Let's go a little bit closer. Got his back for us. Hopefully signal will be strong. Hello, Boyki. We're back again. It's us. Ditch on the road here. Not in an area where we do. I'm going to move slowly. Okay, that's good. Okay, so we sort of hanging on the edge of our signal range. Just had to maneuver. And once again, we found our little boy, and I don't know, I wonder, he couldn't have been lying too far off the road, but he's just been roaring. I'm hoping that in this late evening or early evening, late afternoon, still air, the wind has dropped completely. I'm hoping he's going to call again, because I'm sure there might have been people that missed it the other day, but just incredible. We found him. Just want to advertise the fact that I have to. All stations 1 Mandadangala on Dingaans Road, just east of Dingaans Dam. Yeah, affirmative. Oh, you're welcome, Gareth. Same lock. Yeah, I also drove right past him, but he's just woken up and he's been calling, so I managed to find him, and now he's come up to the road. Okay, cool. You beautiful boy. We need to take some photographs of you. Oh, he's so close to us. He's only about, what, maybe 12 feet from me. Serious bad head. He's just woken up. He's got, what do you call it, bedhead. Listen, listen. Sound. That was that was absolutely incredible. Can you do that again, please? We didn't hear it. It was a little bit too faint. Can you do that again, please, young man? This time I'm using my little video function on this little camera. Folks, this is the pinnacle. This is the ultimate moment of visiting Africa. I know you know that I love, I know that you know, and I know that you know that I know, sorry, but I know you know how much I love elephants and how much elephants enthrall me, and that my life is not complete without elephants. But having said that, there is nothing on this planet, there's nothing like sitting this close to a male lion in this cool air when there's not a breath of wind, and the vibration of that deep, deep, guttural roar shakes your bones. I mean, it's vibrating small little pieces of this Land Rover that are not tied down properly. It is the most incredible sound that you will ever hear. And I know that some of you can't visit Africa, so I can only hope that through our medium of Wild Earth and through our being able to come to you live from Africa, that you have been able to experience a little bit. And I also hope that I haven't driven any of your pets wild. Well, not me, but he hasn't driven any of your pets wild. We did have a couple of emails from people saying that some animals react to it and some don't. But wow.
Do you want to listen to it further?
Well, I think it'll be different from listening to it.
It's like loud.
Is it really?
Yeah. Is it?
Okay, next time he calls, maybe.
Yeah.
Is this mic still on?
No.
Oh.
It's a bit.
That's just that was worth driving all this way and stopping for caterpillars and grasshoppers, and I have to go back and apologize to all of those caterpillars for leaving them in a big clump. But it was certainly better than driving over some of them or having to turn around. I guess I could have turned around and gone the other way. And then who knows, we might have found something completely different. But life is what it is. You poor child, you poor dejected, lonely little boy. What are we gonna do with you? Head on pause. Would you like to borrow my brush? Because you just woken up and that hair of yours standing up is not very elegant. Look at the size of his paws. That paw is almost as big as his head. I did manage to get that recorded on my camera. My little camera. I don't want him to do it again now. Because I wasn't zoomed in. There we go. I'm going to call again. What did you hear? Wow, 350 buffalo. And I can only hope that I can sort out why my computer is not connecting to the internet, so that I could post this on Facebook. Okay, we're ready for you to call before this car gets here, boy, because Gareth's coming with his guest. And I don't want the sound of car disturbing your rule. There must be something moving down there in the drainage line, because he's listening to something down there. You gonna call for me? Us? Hi.
No, he wasn't yelling, he came from.
Oh, that was beautiful. I managed to... Oh, look, what's that? Batalua. Shimungwe. Something. Okay, I managed to capture that one nicely because I just kind of knew that it was going to yawn. Next, you just go from the yawn straight into the raw. That was fantastic. Now heading on the gain.
The game is almost.
Oh, we're still on 0.
Huh?
0. No gain or?
No game.
One game.
No.
It's coming down there.
What's your hurt?
So maybe we should start moving this. You wander off.
Let's give him a hug.
Okay.
Slowly.
Okay.
The camera's recording. Not sure the camera's recording.
But we're starting to lose light for this cam, so it's time to move on. Your lock. Hi. At him, I hope. Yeah. Hopefully down south they'll make an appearance. Buona namuzu. So I'm starting my car now, Becky. Hope you're not going to mind.